Starting us off at number 10 is the ladies' man. So this story originates in Zimbabwe and is about the ghost of a dreadlocked man who calls himself Bongani. According to residents living in Bulawayo, whoever has met Bongani reported him being quite nice and well-mannered and helpful. During the night he would flirt and court women. Problematic, but I mean, a man's gotta eat. Lol, kidding, no. Either way, Bongani came with a catch, and that was he didn't talk to guys at all. Many women have met him at night, and despite all saying they'd be scared of meeting a man that late at night, they all said they didn't feel threatened by him at all, and they instantly just trusted him. Now, aside from being a smooth criminal, Bongani is a bit of a hero as well. One night, a woman was attacked by 4 men who dragged her to a nearby cemetery intending to gang rape her. Just as they were about to start, they saw a flash of light in the distance which reappeared close to them a few seconds later. The light then turned into Bongani and the men freaked out over the ghost and ran away. I just put him as the starting one because like who wouldn't love a ghost like that? Like yes, Bongani. Yes. Coming in at number 9 is the string. So this one really warmed my heart despite how savage it is. So way back when people still rode in horse-drawn carriages, a New Jersey farmer called Charles Henry Durand was going home one night. All of a sudden, in the middle of the road, his horse just stopped moving, refused to go further, and just started trembling. And keep in mind that animals can sense things that aren't there, i.e. ghosts, before we can. So a few minutes later, the air around Charles grew heavy and a light in the distance slowly morphed into a woman next to Charles's wagon. Scared and also too scared to run, Charles stayed put and heard the figure say there is danger at home, stay away until morning, and at that point he recognized the voice as his dead wife's. He listened and then went home probably 30 minutes later and noticed a locked window was now unlocked. Inside he found muddy footprints everywhere and noticed a string in the dark. He moved it with his umbrella and a gunshot sailed straight past him. Had he not seen the string or had a warning from his wife, he would have walked straight into that string, triggered the gun, and gotten shot right in the chest. Dude, I told you guys, happy wife, happy life. Charles must have been doing something right while she was alive. Yes, Charles, we love a good husband. At number 8 we have the Grey Man. Now Pawleys Island in South Carolina is one of the oldest summer resort towns on the east coast. I mean, it has amazing beaches, views, and it has a resident ghost. The Grey Man is an apparition dressed in pirate clothes, and the story goes that he appears before the onset of any hurricane, and whoever is lucky enough to see him will be spared from the damage, and so will their house. And that's useful as hell considering there have been like 5 bad hurricanes in the area over the years, and apparently he's appeared before every single one of them. Reliable. We like a reliable ghost. And if you don't believe me, then hear it from the horse's mouth itself. Back in 1989, longtime residents of the area Jim and Clara Moore were walking along the beach when they saw a man walking towards them. Jim was just about to say hi to the man when he vanished altogether, and then a while later, Hurricane Hugo hit the neighborhood. Every home in the Moores neighborhood was completely destroyed except theirs. Coincidence? I think not. In another incident, a fisherman saw someone waving to him on the shore, and as he went closer, he saw the figure hold up his hand as a sort of warning. The man took it as a sign to stop fishing, and later that night a horrible storm hit, and had he been out in the water, he would have died straight away. So he always credits the Grey Man for saving his life. Heart getting too warm. Getting too full. Filling our number 7 slot is the submerged car. Now back in March of 2015, EMTs rushed to the scene of a car accident. The car had been overturned in an icy river, and when the responders got there they found a woman in the front and a baby strapped in the back. Now the car itself was hanging upside down in ice cold water, meaning the front 2 seats were completely submerged while the back still had some way to go, if you can kind of imagine what I mean. When rescuers got into the water, they realized the mother was already dead, yet they heard an adult voice coming from the car and it kept saying help. Officer Jared Warner was one of the first people to reach the car, and he said him and 4 other people all got together and spoke about it, and it's not like they all imagined the same thing. They all definitely heard the voice. One of the team members even responded at the time saying, "We're trying our best to get in there." Baby Lily actually managed to survive the ordeal despite being in the car for 14 hours without food or water and being upside down with icy water just flowing right below her head. Miracles, you guys. Miracles do come true. That's not a saying. Miracles come true. That's not saying. Now at number 6 is The Sister. So this one was submitted by Princess Leia back in 2009, and she said when she was 23 years old, she moved in with one of her best friends. Her friend had had a sister who had died recently, and he sort of had a shrine dedicated to her in his house. It was a big bookcase with pictures of her, poems she'd written, a glass crucifix, and some candles. And every day he would sort of do a ritual where he'd take a shot of tequila in front of it and listen to one of her favorite songs. He went on to tell Leia that as long as she lived in that house, that his sister would always protect her. Skeptical, but she went along with it anyway just to make him happy. One night while her friend was at work, she was at home when her abusive ex called her. The ex had also been friends with her friend, so he knew where they lived and he really wanted to see her and happened to be in the neighborhood. Leia said she didn't want to see him and went about locking all the doors in the house, but her ex had already climbed into her friend's bedroom through his window. Psycho ex alert. He had a knife and chased her into the living room and attempted to rape her. Leia was crying, and when he got on top of her, all of a sudden the bookcase started shaking and all the candles went out. The glass crucifix flew off the shelf and hit him in the back, and then the stereo came on and started blasting the sister's favorite song. Freaked the hell out, the ex got up and ran out of the house and never bothered her again. A, the story makes me sick to my stomach because of this ex, like trash, complete trash. But B, I'm so glad the sister ghost was there, like, yes, girls supporting girls. I'm lame. Coming in at number 5 is The Christmas Miracle. This list is really warming my heart, you guys. I'm really about it. Like, I love it. Either way, so this one took place on Christmas Eve in Shropshire back in 2016. Jane Reynolds and her 2 sons were at home sleeping when at 4 AM an unknown force ripped her duvet off her and started shaking her. Before she could even properly wake up and know what on earth was going on, she heard a child screaming and a banging noise. Now, she didn't recognize the voice of the child screaming, but she rushed downstairs to check on her boys, and 4-year-old Ethan was asleep while 18-month-old George was choking and struggling to breathe. She quickly patted him and cleared his airway, but when paramedics showed up, they told Jane how lucky she was she had gotten to him in time. Even though it wasn't her, it was the force or ghost that had woken her up. Curious, she decided to do some digging and speak to her elderly neighbor, who told her 50 years prior a baby had died in his sleep in their house and the parents were so heartbroken they moved out. So I'm pretty sure the ghost of that baby helped save little baby George. Babies unite! At number 4 is Dolly Parton. Honestly, her story isn't massively shocking or scary enough to earn her spot number 4, but I kind of just put her here because she's Dolly Parton. Either way, I'm sure we all know who she is. She appeared on Hannah Montana, she's a massive country singer, you guys get the gist. Now, throughout her many interviews, she claims she's protected by both her late grandmothers, and she even has proof. One day, she had a performance in Salt Lake City, so that night as she was going to leave the airport, she saw her grandma's ghost in the corner of her room saying don't catch the plane over and over again. Spooked out but still trusting her, she decided to take her advice and switch flights. And it's a good thing she did, because the flight she was meant to get on ended up crashing, killing every single person aboard. Thank you, grandmas, for keeping me alive. Grandmas unite! Filling our number 3 slot is Inception. Literally, this one is Inception because it's like a ghost saves a ghost. Hear me out, you guys. A few years ago, 50-year-old Sonia Burton had a heart attack and was clinically dead for a good 56 minutes. That day was so normal, it just didn't make sense. She went to work at the bingo hall. I mean, what a cute old woman job. Like, of course she works at a bingo hall. Either way, as her shift started, she felt a sharp shooting pain in her chest and then collapsed. Paramedics got there ASAP Rocky and worked hard to save her life while she was being transported to the hospital. While she was dead, Sonia claimed she was about to go into the light, so to speak, when she met and saw her late husband. He told her, "It's not your time, Sonia, go back to the children," and miraculously 1 minute later, she woke up in the hospital, despite being dead for basically an hour. Essentially, her ghost or spirit met her husband's ghost or spirit, and he was like, yo, get back down there. Ghosts, unite! I love it. Now at number 2 is NASCAR. Don't we all love a bit of race car driving? Yes we do. Either way, many of you may have heard of this story already, but if you haven't, grab your popcorn, folks. 15 years ago, Dale Earnhardt Jr. got into a really bad accident and he believes he survived it because of a ghost. On the 18th of July 2004, Dale's Corvette spun off the track during a warm-up and then hit the barriers and caught fire. The camera footage shows him sitting motionless in the car before it combusts, and then we see him crawling out of the car. Despite looking like he crawled himself, Dale is adamant that someone pulled him out of the car. Initially, he thought it was a corner worker or something since he felt hands under his armpits pulling him out, but that never happened as the footage shows. He's sure that he didn't climb out himself. He remembered sort of moving or trying to move, but then something grabbed him and just pulled him over the door bars and then let him fall to the ground. I mean, despite suffering from second-degree burns and a whole host of injuries, this ghost did well. Nothing is uniting here, so unfortunately I can't do my catchphrase. And finally, at number 1 is the shoe. Back in June of 1994, Christine Skubish and her 3-year-old son Nick left Sacramento to start a new chapter in their lives. Sadly, on the way there, Christine fell asleep while driving and crashed into an embankment 40 feet below the road. It's believed Christine pretty much died instantly, but miraculously Nick survived. Now get this, 4 days later, a Sacramento local, Deborah Hoyt, was awoken early in the morning and felt this strange need like she had to leave the house straight away. On Highway 50, Deborah and her husband found the naked body of a woman lying on the side of the road and they called police immediately, and that body they saw, that was Christine. But when the authorities got there, they found no woman lying anywhere. Instead, they found a child's tennis shoe which led them to the car. Nick was dehydrated, he had turned blue from hypothermia, and the deputy found him in the passenger seat of the car next to Christine's body. So how on earth did Deborah and her husband claim they saw her body? It's not like her dead body moved from the car to the road. And Nick never even left the car, so how did his shoe magically get up there? Many believe Christine's ghost made one last effort to save Nick by appearing as an apparition on the road and also, I guess, transporting his shoe onto the road? Who knows? But I'm pretty sure Deborah's a mum and Christine is a mum, so mothers unite. Now starting us off with number 10 is I See Dead People. Yup, I'm not even kidding you right now. So this story is from Amanda, a psychic medium who can also see dead people. She claims they're not always just around. I mean, some places have more deceased in them than others. Now one morning she woke up at around 3 AM and saw a crowd of dead people surrounding her car. Not really in the mood to socialize, she just asked, "What are you guys doing here?" To which one of them replied, "Protecting." She just replied, "Great, thanks," and got ready to pick up her brother-in-law who was dropping her to the airport and then taking her car for the weekend. Just as she was boarding the plane, she got a text from him saying, "I've been rear-ended by a semi-truck, but I am okay. What's your insurance?" And he, out of all people, was known to really downplay things, so Amanda knew it was a lot worse than what he was letting on. Her car was properly hit by a semi-truck and he walked away without a scratch. Like, the car was very nearly totaled, but he was fine. But then the image of the dead people surrounding her car hit her and she realized they were protecting him and not her car. Because who the hell walks away from a bad accident between a semi-truck and a compact car unscathed? This guy, miraculously, because these spirits protected him. Coming in at number 9 is the hit and run, but not. Now this one was shared by Reddit user Cobwebs5, who said his dad was driving home late one night and was really tired. Major safety hazard alert right there, let's not do that. He was on an isolated stretch of road and then a man suddenly appeared right in front of his car holding his hands up trying to stop the car. Obviously the user's dad was going too fast and couldn't stop in time, so he hit him and he full on heard his headlight smash and felt the body go under the wheels. He hit the brakes and got out of the car, but there was no one there. The body hadn't been flung anywhere because he looked everywhere, and there was also no damage to the car. The smashed headlight, completely intact. After checking thoroughly to make sure he wasn't accidentally doing a hit and run, and right after he passed the next hill, he saw a jackknifed semi that had he never stopped, he would have plowed right into. His dad was so shocked because he had seen the man he hit so clearly. He remembered what he wore, what he looked like, his age, and he had no idea who or what it was. He just concluded that a spirit somewhere had been looking out for him, and that's how he was saved. At number 8 we have teamwork. 74-year-old Ian Powell was not only saved saved by a ghost, he was also saved by his own dog, Chaz. We love good tactical assist, don't we? Yes, we do, especially by a good doggo. Now, back in 2015, Ian was watching Chaz bark at an entity that wasn't there and then acting very uneasy before leaping at him and hitting him in the temple above his right eye. For the next 2 weeks after that jab, Ian had persistent headaches and eventually went to the doctor and found out he had a tumor and 1 year to live. 0 to 100 real quick. After his operation, the doctors told Ian that the bruise Chaz had given him was exactly where the tumor had been growing, like he literally hit it right on the bullseye. They went on to say he owes that dog his life and that dogs can sense cancer sometimes anyway, but the fact he was guided by this unseen entity ghost power to leap onto the exact area says a lot. Ian claims he's felt a spirit guide around him his whole life, so he really wasn't surprised if that and Chaz worked together to save his life. Because now his tumor is gone due to the radiotherapy he endured, and had Chaz not hit him in the head, it would have gone undetected, and he could have died. Filling our number 7 slot is the Repeat Hero Part 1. So this 3-part hero is none other than the very famous jazz trumpet player Miles Davis. So he was born in Alton, Illinois, and despite dying back in 1991, his ghost is still making the world a better place. Steve French, a professional glass blower and resident of Alton, was asleep one night unaware that his glass blowing furnace had exploded. One of his cats had knocked over a jar of paint thinner into its top, and if you have a cat, you know that cat damn well meant it. It wasn't an accident, it was like It was totally on purpose. Anyway, since the coals in the furnace were still smoldering, the container completely combusted. Had it not been for Miles's ghost, Steve, along with his cat Steve French Jr., and their house would have perished in the fire. Steve claimed he was woken up by the sound of his phantom trumpet, and the sound was so smooth and elegant that he simply couldn't sleep through it. He woke up and saw the ghost of Miles winking at him before the smell of smoke hit him, and he rushed downstairs. Thankfully, he was able to salvage the situation and the day was saved. To be fair, honestly, screw the story, I'm just laughing at the fact he named the cat after himself. Like, imagine if my cat was called Eamon Hassan Jr., like, that just sounds disgusting. Now at number 6 is the Repeat Hero Part 2. Now, Miles Davis's good deeds don't end with Steve and his cat, oh no. So this case involves an Alton resident named Billy Pilgrim. Now, Billy was working on his truck in his garage when his lift failed him, and as he was working under the truck, he became stuck between the truck and the floor and was obviously unable to move, because I doubt he had the strength to lift a full-on truck off of him. Billy said he started hearing the overwhelming melody of some brass instrument, but he couldn't tell if it was real or he was just delirious from the pain. Probably a bit of both, if I'm honest. Now, all he does know is that he looked up to find Miles Davis staring at him exactly like the statue of him that's downtown. Miles then lifted the truck off him like it was a feather, and Billy was able to roll out from under it and not die. Thankfully, the accident only crushed his hip, and he believes Miles was kind to him because one winter he put a knitted cap on his statue since he seemed cold, and now he was returning the favor. What a happy little story, except the whole hip crushing bit. That wasn't good. Coming in at number 5 is the Repeat Hero Part 3, and I promise you, we have come to the last of Miles's good deeds for now. So this case happened in the 4200 block of Albee, where a little kid was playing with his ball before, of course, disaster struck when he dropped it and it started rolling onto the road. The kid started running after it, and his mum was looking on as a 1998 Camaro was coming right towards him, about to make him into roadkill. She said a ghostly hand grabbed him and pulled him to safety on the other side of the road, but in the ghost's other hand was a trumpet. There and then she knew it was Miles Davis's ghost who saved her son, but to be honest, I'm in shock right now because why was she just staring as her son was about to get hit by a car? Like, did she know Miles's ghost was gonna swoop in and save him? Like, why didn't she run and get him? Ghosts aren't gonna save your ass every time. So what are you doing? Negligence. That's what you're doing. At number 4 is the Gym Bro. So this one was shared by Redditor Memerang344 from Dallas. Now this dude went down to his basement because his home gym was there, and so he went to lift weights and finally got onto the bench press. And if you don't know what a bench press is, you're basically lying on a bench with a barbell above your head, and then you lift it, bring it as low to your chest as you can, and then extend your arms and then repeat. As you can see, I am a gym goer. As he was doing it, he hadn't even reached near failure in lifting, but he just gave out. The bar was actually literally 1 centimeter from his throat, and he was about to drop it, but out of nowhere something or some entity lifted the bar and set it back on the rack. Like the boy did not put any strength or push into it, it just did it by itself. Dumbfounded, he ran upstairs to rationalize what had happened, but he believes that a fellow gym junkie ghost saved his life. Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy. Filling our number 3 slot is the World War I throwback. So this was shared by Audie, who was a World War II veteran and fought in the Vietnam War. On the 2nd of May 1968, him along with a bunch of Marines were in the middle of a North Vietnam attack since their troops were trying to open an invasion corridor right into South Vietnam. Audie's job was to make sure the attack failed and kill as many of the other side as possible, and despite being backed by heavy artillery and airstrikes, the situation was bad. They were in danger of being overrun since the northern fighters were relentless. Now Audie fully thought he was gonna die that day as they started pulling back and running through the thick brush. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a man in a World War I uniform standing in an opening within a tree line. He seemed to be waving at Audie and gesturing for him to follow him, and so he did. Honestly, if you think you're gonna die anyway, you may as well just start following people that aren't real, you know, like why not? Nothing to lose at this point. By the time Audie got there, the soldier was gone, but the position they had was perfect. There was plenty of cover to fight behind, and they managed to win that fight. During it though, Audie looked to his left to see it was his own granddad dressed in the World War I uniform smiling at him. Thinking he was seeing things, he shook it off, closed his eyes, but when he opened them again, the ghost was gone. Now at number 2 is The Fall. This one's from Jennifer Brozek, who said in the 70s and 80s her family was in Belgium because her dad was stationed there. They lived in the 300-year-old mansion, and so you can imagine the old quirks and ghost stories that came with that. Even her dad had had some paranormal experiences in the house despite being an adamant skeptic, but I feel like everyone's skeptical until they actually experience it. Either way, one day Jennifer and her siblings decided to dare each other to walk out of the 2nd story window and see who could get the furthest across the patio top without being scared. Mind you, they were like around the 9 and 11 age range, so small and dumb are the key words here. Now Jennifer went first, and as she was walking ended up slipping and sliding down the incline, and she remembered hearing her sister scream her name, and then the next thing she knows, she's waking up to her face on the ground. She recalled nothing from the sliding to the fall. Now she was quickly rushed to the hospital, and the doctors were mystified as to how she wasn't dead. People who fell from that height usually never walk again. The body tenses before it hits the ground, which causes the injuries, yet Jennifer must have been limp when she hit the ground. When they all got home, their parents started quizzing them on what had happened, and they made up the story of how she accidentally fell out of the window. Like, great, that's believable. Either way, her sister actually piped up saying, "I know what happened. I saw her slide down the roof trying to grab onto anything, and when she looked up, her sister saw Jennifer's face shining white and smiling. Then she went limp and let herself fall over the edge, and she emphasized that it glowed white, like her face was glowing. So I mean, the whole family stopped being skeptical after that, because clearly some spirit had possessed Jennifer and made her go limp so she could walk away with just a bruise from a 20-foot fall. You owe that ghost your life, Jennifer, and your mobility. And finally, at number 1 is Bobby. This one was shared back in 2010 by Robin from Savannah, Georgia. She said she'd always believed in ghosts, and she was in her first year of high school when this occurrence took place. Her home was not a happy one, so she always preferred being at school. One day she heard her mum and her husband arguing, and when her sister intervened, the man hit her. They stayed at a hotel that night but was back with him the next day, and it was just a repetitive toxic cycle. Despite being young, Robin knew something was just really off. She'd get home from school every day and just cry constantly, and that's when her suicidal thoughts started. The thoughts started getting worse and worse, and one night as she was getting ready for bed, Robin felt like the next day was the day she was finally gonna go through with it. But as she was trying to sleep, she felt someone rubbing her back like they were comforting her. No one was behind her, so she just ignored it, but then she heard something in her head calling her name. She kept hearing it, and then something started to actually appear, and don't get me wrong, she was scared, but not as scared as she should have been. If something was just materializing in front of her, I'd myself. This spirit started appearing more frequently over the next few days, and he was always by her side, and she felt like it was the only thing that actually cared about her. One day her mum caught Robin talking to him and asked if she was okay. Robin then told her everything about the spirit and the suicidal thoughts, and her mum just replied saying it was all in her head. Great reply to someone who is going through mental struggles. It's all in your head. Like, no it's not. Robin then said his name was Bobby, and her mum started crying and left the room to call her father. Apparently Bobby was Robin's granddad that had died years before she was born, yet he saved her life. Starting us off at number 10 is the mum. Now back in 2015, police officers in Utah were approaching a damaged submerged car in the Spanish Fork River. As they got closer, they heard a woman yelling, "Help, we're in here." The police then followed the voice, found the scene, and pulled the wreck out of the water. However, upon closer investigation, they noticed that the woman in the car was already dead and had been for at least a few hours. However, the 18-month-old baby that was with her was very much alive. There was no one else around, so they were really confused on who had been screaming for help. One of the officers working the case said this after the fact: "For 2 nights I've laid awake trying to figure out exactly what it could be. All I know is it was there, we all heard it. The only explanation? That mama was looking out for her baby even in the afterlife." Maternal instincts are one of the strongest things in the world, I hear. They say you haven't experienced unconditional love until you have a child, so I feel like a feeling that strong would definitely transcend life itself. Drama. Coming in at number 9 is Dolly Parton's grandma. Dolly has been pretty vocal about her dead grandmas looking out for her, but on one specific occasion, one of them actually ended up saving her life. Dolly was about to get on a plane to Salt Lake City when all of a sudden her grandma appeared in the corner of the room. She apparently kept saying, "Don't catch the plane, do not catch the plane." So Dolly, being smart and listening to her ancestors, did not catch that plane. Good thing too, because the flight ended up crashing and left no survivors. Like, how crazy is that? I read about this a year ago or something, but even then I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. At number 8 we have the wife. Now in the early 1900s, a farmer named Charles Henry Durand was on his way home in a horse-drawn buggy. Suddenly the horse gets really spooked and a woman in white appears out of nowhere. It is always a woman in white. What is up with that? He recognized the woman as his wife who had recently passed away, and he was like, "Oh, hello dear, I missed you." No, he probably didn't say that. She told him, "There's danger at home, stay away till morning." Terrified, he spent hours unhitching his horse and began the trek home. By the time he got there, it was already the morning and he was exhausted, but obviously he listened to his wife's judgment. When he got to his house, he noticed that the windows were broken and there were muddy footprints on the ground, so someone was there all night. And then he noticed a string across his bedroom doorway. Mans was booby-trapped in his own home. He set it off using an umbrella, which triggered a gun that would have shot and killed anyone who walked through the door, ergo him. So in conclusion, his wife's ghost prevented him from becoming the intruder's victim, and that, my friends, is what you get when you treat your girl right. Filling our number 7 slot is the sister. I love my sisters to death. Literally, they're my bestest friends in the world, and I would literally break the afterlife to save their lives. I don't care, I'll do it, I don't give a shit. Now anyway, there was this one woman who was staying with her friend who had a shrine in her house for her sister who had passed away. Her friend assured her that as long as she stayed under that roof, her sister would always protect her, and she was not wrong. The woman's abusive ex-boyfriend managed to find out where she was staying and came over and tried to attack her. He threatened her with a knife, but as soon as he tried, the shrine came to life. It started shaking, the candles blew out, and a crucifix flew across the room at the ex-boyfriend. Not wanting to be the first victim in this horror movie, he booked it, and she never heard from that ex again. And thank God. Now at number 6 is the second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? I mean, it really depends on the situation, to be honest. Cheating? Probably not, I'm sorry. So back in 2016, Sonia Burton suffered a heart attack and paramedics were unable to revive her. The trip to the hospital took nearly an hour, which, what the hell? How does it take that long? I thought it was emergency response. That's not really emergency, is it? Either way, she was officially dead for a total of 56 minutes, but suddenly she came back to life, and the paramedics were astounded because nobody they were treating had ever come back to life after that long. Apparently, while she was gone, Sonia's late husband appeared to her and told her it wasn't her time and to go back to their children. I've actually had a lot of stories of people being dead for a while and then coming back because either they've seen God or someone's told them that it's not their time yet. It's like their souls then find their way back to their bodies and then they just revive themselves. That was very taken from Vampire Diaries, I'm not gonna lie. Coming in at number 5 is Miles Davis, the very popular American jazz trumpeter, if you were unaware, because I was unaware. So this woman from Alton, Illinois, Davis's hometown, claims that Davis actually saved her son's life. Her son was chasing a ball into the street when he was almost struck by an oncoming car. A split second before the collision, the woman says she saw a ghostly hand grab her son and pull him to safety. She said that she saw another ghostly hand belonging to the same apparition holding a trumpet much like Miles Davis would have played. People in that town are very familiar with how Miles Davis looked because of the huge statue of him erected downtown, so the mom had no hesitation in believing that it was Miles Davis who saved her son, the local hero. Not really sure if this actually happened or the mom was just a massive Miles Davis groupie, you know? And number 4 is vengeance. Now this ghost may not have immediately saved a life, but she may have proactively saved many other lives. In fact, she managed to put her killer in jail even after the deed was done. Back in the late 1800s, the ghost of Elva Zona Histeshu came to her mum in a dream. She had died a month earlier of what doctors deemed to be everlasting faint, but her mum had other suspicions. And mums usually know what they're talking about. But can you imagine dying from something called everlasting faint? I know it's not funny, but it seems very dramatic. Like, everlasting faint. Anywho, these suspicions were confirmed when Zona appeared to her in a dream and said that her husband Edward had snapped her neck. Damn it, Edward! Her mum immediately went to the police, who actually took her seriously, possibly because they were concerned that Edward didn't allow the coroner to examine Zona's body. But they exhumed her, of course, and found that her neck was indeed broken and Edward was indeed arrested. And thank God too, because honestly, who would have known what would have happened if he married someone else and then snapped her neck as well? Filling our number 3 slot is the technician. This one comes from an anonymous Reddit user who has an affinity for fixing broken electronics and appliances, and who also seems to be surrounded by ghosts. Long backstory short, he was always the one who would see shadows across empty hallways in abandoned houses, or hear kids giggle in other rooms where there were clearly no kids. He was that kid. You know, the I see dead people kid? He was that kid. And he also liked taking people's broken toys and electronics and fixing them up. But one day he got his buddies to help him install a broken ceiling fan in his room, but apparently they didn't quite get the wiring right. That night he said that he felt the presence of something standing over him and could almost see its shadow through his eyelids. He then started being shaken by this entity, and then somebody started screaming at him to wake up. He did, obviously, only to find out that not only was nobody in his room, but his room was filled with smoke. He ran out of his room to wake his mum up and turn off the power switch, but before shutting his door behind him, he turned and could have sworn he saw a figure standing in the middle of the smoke. Who'd that be? Why'd you save me? Now at number 2, we have the baby who saved. This one is pretty sad because it does involve the ghost of a baby who had passed away, but I mean, it does end slightly happily ever after, so I feel like, you know, we have to give credit where it's due. One night, a woman went to bed after putting her children down for the night. She felt something was off but dismissed it. Hello, don't do that. Maternal instincts, you know better. Anyway, then at 4 AM, she was violently woken up by her covers being ripped off of her and her bed shaking violently. Some entity or another wanted this woman to wake up badly, and then she had a blood-curdling scream and then shouting. Terrified that something was happening to her kids or there was an intruder in the house, she ran into their room. There, she found her one son sleeping peacefully and her baby silently choking. She managed to clear his airway and then later realized that there was nobody else in the house who would have been screaming like that. She found out later that the previous family had moved out 50 years prior after their baby had passed away, and she believes it was this baby's spirit that saved her little boy. RT if you cry every time. I love that. I just loved it. And finally, animal 1 is the Gray Man. This man is infamous for saving people from hurricanes. He lives on Pawleys Island in South Carolina and has been seen wearing old-fashioned pirate clothes. Locals know that if you ever see him walking on the beach, a hurricane is definitely on its way, but you'll be spared from it because you saw him in the flesh, or lack thereof. Now, one couple in 1989 remembers walking on the beach one night and seeing nobody else but this man. The couple went to wave to him, but as soon as they did, he just magically disappeared. Not long after, Hurricane Hugo hit, and their home was the only one in town that was left untouched. Coincidence? I think not.